As the price for NFL quarterbacks goes up, the Miami Dolphins should not pay Tua. I'll explain on a Thursday edition of Locked On NFL.
You are Locked On NFL, your daily NFL podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Welcome in to a Thursday edition of the Locked On NFL podcast. I am one of your hosts, Tyler Rowland, local expert for the Locked On Titans podcast, here with my co-host, Alex Clancy, local expert for the Locked On Cardinals podcast. Today's Locked On NFL is brought to you by Game Time. Download the Game Time app, create an account, use the code Locked On NFL for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. Alex, the Miami Dolphins are at a crossroads. The price for quarterbacks in the NFL continues to go up, and they are tasked with paying Tua Tagovailoa. I would absolutely not pay Tua the price that people think he is going to get paid. I will explain why. We'll talk about which quarterbacks are worth that kind of payday in the NFL, and can you still win a Super Bowl with a game manager quarterback? We're discussing all of that before we dive in. Thank you for making Locked On NFL your first listen each and every day, Monday through Friday. NFL content all year round, always for free. Make sure you get subscribed, stay subscribed. It's your team every day here on the Locked On Podcast Network. But with that being said, Alex, I got to tell you, I wanted to come out of the gate strong here. If you've been listening to Alex and I's version of Locked On NFL Thursday for any length of time, you will know that we have never truly been believers in the Miami Dolphins. And me specifically, I will shoulder that burden if necessary, but I do not believe in this Dolphins team as a true Super Bowl contender. I do not believe in Tua as a true Super Bowl quarterback. I think as they get more attention, as the spotlight gets put on the Dolphins more, they're in these primetime games, they completely laid an egg against the Chiefs. I don't care that it's in bad weather. I don't care that it was in Kansas City, because guess what? If you do go win a Super Bowl through the AFC, probably going to have to play in bad weather. And you're probably going to have to play in Kansas City to get there. So I simply do not believe in Tua as the starting quarterback of the Dolphins to lead them to a Super Bowl. And I think that while teams get stuck in this place of, hey, you know, he's the best quarterback we've had in a while, we're winning more than we're used to, you can't let good be the enemy of great. And Tua is not great, and he doesn't deserve a $50 million plus a year payday. And he's never going to be a quarterback who, if he's getting paid that much, can take them. We're already seeing that process play out. They lose Christian Wilkins. They lose Robert Hunt. Teron Armstead is an older player that's dealing with health issues. Like, they went out and get Aaron Brewer to replace Connor Williams after Williams tears his ACL. And Aaron Brewer is one of the worst pass blocking centers in the NFL. I know personally, after covering him since he's been out of college in the NFL. They need talent on defense. Their secondary is starting to get older. They're losing players in the secondary. We've seen their corners, Xavier Howard, Byron Jones. I mean, I just think we're already seeing this team lose a ton of talent because they're setting up for paying Tua and paying Waddle and giving an increase to Tyreek Hill. And I just don't think that this team can continue getting better as a roster if they pay Tua what he's expected to make. So I would caution the Miami Dolphins to simply not pay Tua, even if it means that he leaves and he goes elsewhere. Let it be. Let it go and start over. I know that's a hard pill for Dolphins fans to swallow with how they're more competitive now than they've been in a while. But at the end of the day, I think they've already peaked out. They maxed out last year with what they could do, and it's only downhill if they pay Tua that money. So that's my opinion of it. I know it's a strong opinion. I know plenty of people will not agree. Kate and Michelle Madjuk did a great top 20 quarterback ranking on this podcast, on this channel earlier this week, and they had Tua at number 13. I disagree with that ranking, but you know, that's just how I feel about the situation. So the Dolphins are going to have to make that choice soon. Alex, what would you do if you were them?
Well, I'm hoping that at some point and sometime soon we'll normalize not paying the next quarterback who's up for a contract more than the guy who just got paid. You know, the Giants did this with Daniel Jones. It was a very team-friendly-ish, even though Daniel Jones missed some time. It was team-friendly, and it wasn't the most. Okay, and I feel like with Tua, it's outside of the purview of rational thought to think he's going to be the highest paid quarterback in the NFL.
It doesn't
I
make
don't
any
think
sense.
that's going to be the case. Now, with that, if you don't pay Tua, it's got ripple effects. You may as well trade Tyreek Hill. You may as well start completely over because Tua and Tyreek Hill and Jalen Waddle, that works. Look at the numbers. The numbers suggest
in the regular season.
Right, but the numbers suggest that he 100% deserves every dollar that he's getting paid. Okay, they've just because that they haven't won a playoff game like 15 years. I mean, it's been a long time. Here's the thing, Tyler. The one thing that's tough for people to crunch inside their brain is most teams don't win playoff games. Most teams don't win Super Bowls. There's more than a handful of teams that have never won a Super Bowl. So what is the definition of worth it? And we'll talk about that in the next segment. Which quarterback's worth it? Tua, you could do a lot worse than Tua. And that's where I struggle with not paying him because it's like, well, you're going to draft a rookie? Then you may as well trade everybody. And that's just something that I don't think, they're willing to do. So I think that
I don't think they're willing to do it, but I think they should. I mean, if the option is to pay Tua and then try to keep, why not just have Tua and Tyreek this year and then go into next year or next offseason and look to make changes? They're already losing so much talent this offseason. They've lost so much talent already. I just don't see I think the Jets are going to be better just out of pure luck. They have to be just regression back to the mean based on the injuries and everything. Yeah. The Bills, they maybe took a little bit of a step back, but I don't think that the Dolphins are ever jumping the Bills. And the Patriots might get better, as with the coaching change and the new players. I just don't think that – I'm not saying Miami should trade Tyreek and, blah, 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 but I just wouldn't commit to Tua long term. $50 million a season on average like that. I feel like there's a middle ground between trading everybody and doing that, and they need to find it. And if they had to decide between trade everybody, start over, and pay Tua, I would say trade Tyreek after this season, let Tua go, and start over. You just paid Jalen Waddle a good contract, a good value contract for him. You need talent all over the place. They might be forced to do it anyway before they get better. So that's just where I stand.
Yeah, but I mean, look at what he's done on the field. You can't just look. I'm not saying he's going to get $50 million because he shouldn't. And if they do, this is a completely different conversation. He shouldn't be the highest paid quarterback in football. We can agree on that. And he also is a guy who has shown enough to get paid. I mean, what you can franchise tag him for a year? That'll be expensive. The thing is, Tyler, the roster construction was because of what they gave up for Tyreek Hill. They haven't been able to replenish because they gave up a whole bunch of picks for Tyreek Hill, and they haven't been able to get younger. So with that, the defense is going to struggle, as you mentioned. It's not what it once was. I mean, even with Jalen Ramsey there. But you know how many bad quarterbacks there were in the NFL last year and the year before that? Tua was well towards the top of quarterback production. Being good and relevant in the NFL is sometimes worth paying the quarterback. So when you say good is the absence of great, there's one great team. There's two great teams in the NFL, the Chiefs and the 49ers. That's it. The Eagles are good. They're above average. The Bills are above average. Burrow's above average in Cincinnati. Miami's above average. There's so much bad crap football in the NFL that you kind of got to see what they are for what they are. They're not bad. So that's good. So with paying him,
they're not bad.
I just don't know.
Well, I have a general rule here. Do I think I can win the Super Bowl with this quarterback? And I personally don't believe you can win a Super Bowl with Tua. I don't think he's ever going to step up to the challenge and be clutch when you need him in a big moment in the playoffs. And with that in mind, I couldn't do it. I couldn't do it. But which quarterbacks could I do it with? That sounds weird, but you know what I'm saying. Which quarterbacks would we pay? Which quarterbacks do we think could win the Super Bowl? Which quarterbacks are worth that payday? We're going to talk about that. Before we do, though, do want to let you guys know that today's episode is brought to you by Game Time. Look, we're in the middle of the NBA Finals, and hopefully the Dallas Mavericks turn this thing around. Please, I'm begging you. But there's no better place to get tickets for the NBA Finals than Game Time. Game Time has the best features of any ticket buying app in the marketplace. One, they have killer last-minute deals. Like, prices often go down as you get closer to tip-off on game time. You also get all-in prices, so the price that you see on your tickets is actually the price that you see when you go to check out. You also get a view from your seat, like a panoramic view, so you know what it's going to look like when you sit down. And you get the game time guarantee. If you find tickets for cheaper in the same row and section, they're going to credit you 110% of the difference. Game Time puts their money where their mouth is. Take the guesswork out of buying tickets for the NBA Finals. With Game Time, download the Game Time app, create an account, use the code LOCKEDONNFL for $20 off. Terms apply. Again, create an account, redeem code LOCKEDON NFL for $20 off your first purchase. Download Game Time today. Last minute tickets, lowest price guaranteed. All right, Alex, let's continue this Thursday edition of the Locked On NFL podcast. I laid out my opinion for why I don't think the Dolphins should pay Tua. I know it's a bit controversial, but it's just how I feel. But let's talk about quarterbacks that we do think are worth paying in the NFL, and it's honestly a short list. And when we talk about worth paying, really what I'm thinking about is these $50 million contracts that we've seen recently from, Joe Burrow to Patrick Mahomes to Jalen Hurts got a big deal, and honestly, he's right on the line for me. I'm not certain that would be there. Dak Prescott is in line to get a new contract soon. Kirk Cousins obviously got a monster deal from the Atlanta Falcons. Who is worth it? What does worth it mean? Alex, I spent a lot of time talking in the last segment about my opinion on the Tua situation, so I'm going to let you tell me what is worth it to you for a quarterback to get that $50 million a year paycheck.
Every year relevancy. Winning more games than you lose by a wide margin, competing for division crowns every year. And I think that it's like the line, especially, and Tyler, like as the salary cap goes up, I mean, the salary cap will be $500 million in 10 years or 5 years or whatever it is.
Right.
Like it's percentage of cap. It's not the actual number. It's not 50 million. It's going to be 60 million. It's going to be 70 million a year. Like this is only going to go up, and maybe not 70, but it's only going to go up. It's percentage of cap utilized for one position. And for me, when you see perpetual relevancy, that's a quarterback that deserves the money. Like Dak Prescott deserves the money. Okay. This isn't something like, well, oh no,
I agree with you.
He folds in the playoffs. Yeah. He folds in the playoffs. He does all this stuff. Where did he fold? Oh, in the second round of the playoffs? Yeah, what's your favorite quarterback doing? Eating Doritos? Yeah. Dak Prescott deserves the contract, okay? Jalen Hurts deserves the contract. They made it to a Super Bowl. And ever since he was a rookie, when he took over, he changed the landscape of that offense.
Yeah,
and it hasn't been perfect, and it hasn't been great. The problem, comparison. Cody Rourke from Detroit, from Locked On Broncos, said this in one of our group chats a couple years ago, and I never heard the phrase, but apparently, I mean, obviously it's super recent. I hear it now. Comparison is the thief of joy.
Yeah.
Okay. So when in your situation with the fan that with the team that you love, a team that you cover, whatever it is, if that player plays well and you win more games than you lose and you make the playoffs every year, they deserve the contract. Like comparing any quarterback to Patrick Mahomes or Kyle Shanahan is a fool's errand.
Right.
It's a fool's errand. You can't do it. Like in any world that isn't this world, Josh Allen would be the best quarterback in football, and he would have won probably 2 Super Bowls. Joe Burrow would have probably won a Super Bowl. But when you compare everybody to Tom Brady and then Patrick Mahomes, it defies reason that they're able to do what they do every year. So it screws everything else up, Tyler. It's like every rational comparison to any sort of situation where it's like that guy deserves the money, like Tua from last segment. If Patrick Mahomes didn't exist, Tua 100% deserves the money. But because Patrick Mahomes exists, he doesn't. Like that's the irrationality when you're having this conversation where the majority of quarterbacks who win more games than they lose, are on the fringe of the playoffs every year, deserve the contract. It's just as simple as that.
That's interesting. That's an interesting way to put it, because when I ask you this next name, that using that philosophy, Trevor Lawrence. Rumor is he's about to get a huge payday from Jacksonville, maybe again in that $50 million range. It's resetting the market, all those things that we hear every time we see one of these young quarterbacks get paid. Do you think that Trevor Lawrence is someone who's worth it to get that kind of money based on what he's done so far?
what Jacksonville does, what Shad Khan does in Jacksonville, makes what Michael Bidwell does in Arizona look rational. The Jacksonville Jaguars just get a pass for being completely irrational, poorly run. Like, their GM should have been fired 5 times. Ask Tony Wiggins about their GM. Like, Trevor, but here's the thing. They don't have any other big contracts on their books. Like, nobody's getting paid there. Evan Ingram got some juice. Okay, Christian Kirk got a good payday 2 years ago. They haven't paid anybody. So now it's like, well, they have the money to spend, and he's the guy, and everybody loves him. I would franchise tag him immediately.
Right.
Do it first. He hasn't done it. That's been a piss-poor AFC South, you know very well, okay? They almost lost to Tennessee with Josh Dobbs a couple years ago. There was a pick six, I think. Did Tennessee throw a pick six?
It was a controversial fumble call where the quarterback's
whatever
hand
it was,
got
it was
hit.
the defense that did it.
Right,
Like,
right.
Trevor
Lawrence was awful in that game.
He's never shown that he's a QB1. Not once, maybe in spurts, but he's never shown. And you know what? Give him the year with Urban Meyer. He still hasn't shown anything. So that's a guy who's right on the line. I'm franchise tagging him once, if not twice, instead of giving him $50 million guaranteed a year.
Yeah, that's an interesting one because he's kind of like
you agree
really
with me, right?
Some of those. But yeah, I don't know how they pay him top of the market, reset the market. Like, if I'm uncomfortable with paying Tua has shown far more than Trevor Lawrence has so far, if we're just cutting it straight, you know what I mean? So there's no way that I could say I'm comfortable with Trevor Lawrence. I think Jacksonville has to, because it would just, if they don't, then it just puts a big cloud over the season and over everything, you know what I mean? So I think they'll do it just so the boat doesn't rock. But I think it's definitely risky. I think the Doug Peterson, Trevor Lawrence combination is nowhere near as reliable, at least for the regular season, as the Mike McDaniel and Tua combination. So interestingly, Michelle and Kate had Trevor Lawrence ranked 16th, a couple of spots behind Tua. And then they had Jared Goff behind Trevor Lawrence, which I know that you won't agree with as a Jared Goff truther. I do want to ask you about the quarterback in your backyard, because I feel like out of this list, you have Mahomes, Josh Allen, Joe Burrow, Lamar Jackson, Justin Herbert. I feel like those guys are worth it. Brock Purdy is a good conversation, but Kyler Murray, they have Kyler Murray ranked as the 10th best quarterback in the NFL. I personally think that's too high. I don't think that Kyler Murray over the last few years deserves to be a top 10 quarterback based on what we've seen from guys like Matt Stafford, who won a Super Bowl. After that, I guess we can have conversation. Jared Goff, of course, as well. I think a healthy Aaron Rodgers is better than Kyler Murray, in my opinion. But do you think that Kyler Murray is worth that $50 million paycheck?
Yeah. And real quick on Trevor Lawrence, unfortunately with Trevor Lawrence, I want him to be great. Like, what an incredible story down in Jacksonville where he brings that team out of the mud and the muck and he becomes the actual golden boy. You know?
Do I have to like this?
Like with Clemson, like, it's such a great story. It's such a great story. He takes over Kelly O'Brien's job overnight, and he becomes this golden child as a rookie, as a freshman, and he actually amounts to what
I think that's why everyone's so high on Trevor Lawrence. That's why, despite his shortcomings, realistically, the idea of Trevor Lawrence resurrecting Jacksonville from the Clemson heritage where we saw him win, like, that's why people are still so high on Jacksonville, despite them, all the things like last year, Trevor Lawrence was terrible in that final game against the Titans, a complete upset, threw a terrible interception at the end of the game, missed guys, and he hasn't shown enough to get the faith that he gets in the national conversation. But I think it's the idea of Trevor Lawrence that keeps people going. But interesting conversations there.
And with that, with Kyler Murray, he's got one of the worst images in the NFL, comparatively speaking. So what Kyler Murray has done.
Your boy Cliff Kingsbury probably has a lot to do with that.
Cliff, he does. So coming into the league, and I'm going to go a little bit long here because I want to spend a minute and a half on this. So week 1, his rookie season, they're down 3 scores at halftime to Detroit at home. Cliff Kingsbury was quoted as saying he thought he was going to get fired at halftime of his first game as head coach. Kyler Murray comes back. They tie the game. They go into overtime. Tremaine Brock, who's playing safety at the time, had a ball go off his chest plate from Matthew Stafford in Detroit territory. They were an interception and field goal away from winning week 1 where they had no business doing it. 2022 against the Raiders. He came all the way back in Vegas and they win in overtime in miraculous fashion. There are 5 quarterbacks that can do that in the NFL, and Kyler Murray is one of them. So what I call them is oh my God moments. He's had so many oh my God moments in this league, and the rest to massage out the rest of them, make them more, prevalent is coaching, and he hasn't had that. So this is the year we're going to find out how great Kyler Murray truly can be. Okay,
yeah,
he has a bad PR guy, so to speak. We'll see what happens this year. Don't look at the size. Look at the system. Look at the coach. Look at the players. They've got the most potent offense they've had in over a decade. So we're going to find out right now. But he's a very polarizing guy. And you know what? He's going to be so much fun to watch when he absolutely explodes in 2024. Alex Clancy, Tyler Rowan, Locked On NFL Thursday. Are you, over watching Fox Sports or ESPN? People just screaming all day. You have to turn down the volume. Make the switch to Locked On Sports Today, a free 24/7 sports streaming channel program for you every day to bring you the biggest stories without all the screaming. Locked On Sports Today brings you can't-miss analysis, opinions, and news streaming 24/7 on YouTube or the free Amazon Fire TV channels app, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. Can you win a Super Bowl with a game manager and quarterback? We'll discuss it next, Locked On NFL Thursday. Alex Clancy, Locked On Cardinals, Tyler Rowan, Locked On Titans. We are Locked On NFL Thursday. Thank you for making Locked On NFL your first listen, free wherever you get your podcast and on YouTube, part of Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. Which quarterbacks are worth it? That's one conversation. Tyler and I had our text thread this morning, like, what are we going to talk about? He's like, we're doing Tua. And I'm like, oh, goody, I got another one. And then that kind of just sprung into this one. Like, I want to take Brock Purdy out of this conversation, Tyler, because that is – he'll go down as the best game manager of all time. I guess Tom Brady's the best game manager of all time. You could say
such an
that.
enigma, man, because the Kyle Shanahan aspect.
Because we don't know what it's going to be until he gets paid. Because then you're going to see a real roster. You're going to see what it's going to look like with him moving forward. But Tyler, Trent Dilfer, Brad Johnson, those are the 2 biggest names that always come up when game manager who won a Super Bowl, discussion is had. Right. What I want to ask you is like
Eli Manning. I would throw him in.
Eli made
Peyton Manning in 2015.
Eli Manning made some of the most iconic throws in the history of playoff football. He wasn't just throwing to the sticks. That Mario Manningham throw in triple coverage was put it in the Louvre.
Right.
But my question is, with wide receivers getting paid a lot of money now, with edge rushers and corners and safeties starting to make bonkers dollars, my question is, do you have to have a $50 million a year guy to win a Super Bowl? Can it be a B- guy where you have stars around you and just not be the reason why they lose games more than the reason why they win? Or do you always need that superstar quarterback to get you out of the mud and the muck when you're down 10 with 3.5 minutes to go with the ball?
Yeah, I think you do. I think you have to have what I would categorize. I would take from the Cam Newton discussion that popped up when he brought up Brock Purdy. I thought the distinction between a game manager and a game changer is a good thing. And that's why I think like Jalen Hurts is right on that line, but I would put him in the game changer, playmaker category because of what he can do with his legs and his ability to create off schedule and run around in the back and turn it into sandlot and then make the play down the field. I think if you can't do those things, you simply cannot win. In the end, you need somebody who either has like Matthew Stafford is a great example. He may not have incredible mobility and second reaction playmaking and all of that, but his arm talent is so unique and gifted that he can make certain throws out of nowhere. Like as a Tennessee Titans fan, someone who covers the team, that's what you're hoping like with Will Levis. Like Levis is never going to be like a Jalen Hurts, like a Lamar Jackson, even probably like a Patrick Mahomes in terms of the playmaking, because I would say that Hurts and Lamar Jackson are more athletic than Patrick Mahomes, but he still does the all-schedule playmaking stuff as good as anybody's ever done it, you know what I mean? So a guy like Will Levis will never be that. Or like a Kyler Murray who can do that stuff and is just running around all over the place making plays even when the play breaks down. Like Levis is never going to do that. Matthew Stafford doesn't really do that. The current version of Aaron Rodgers doesn't really do that. But if you have arm talent to where the play is going down, you don't got to leave the pocket. You have such insane arm strength that you can, like Jared Goff, for example, is a guy who he doesn't get the credit he deserves for the hose that he has. Jared Goff has a howitzer, man. Like he can make crazy throws, even if he's not out, making the all schedule plays and doing the running around playmaking. His arm talent allows him late in downs when things are breaking down to make throws that other quarterbacks simply cannot make. You know what I mean? So I think you have to have somebody who maybe not the playmaking that we think of when you think of Lamar and Jalen Hurts and Patrick Mahomes and Josh Allen, maybe not the playmaking that you think of with that, but the insane arm talent. You have to have a guy with an extraordinary trait, whether it be playmaking with their feet and their scrambling ability, or whether it be a guy with insane arm talent to make throws late in the down that most people can't make. I think you do need to have an elite trait to win a Super Bowl because the game is just so good, so skilled, so fast now that I think you do need someone who can make plays and not lose the game, but someone who can win the game with plays. And I think you do. I don't think a Trent Dilfer or Brad Johnson style team could win a Super Bowl nowadays. I don't.
Yeah. I mean, they also had two of the most elite defenses in the history of football.
Those just don't matter as much anymore. Like, defenses are good. Like, you need a good defense still. Like, you can't be bad on defense. But we're seeing some of these Super Bowls, man. Like, you got to make plays on offense. You need somebody who's going to step up and make it. Those dominant defenses don't exist anymore.
Yeah, see, the thing is, with the guys like Jalen Hurts and Josh Allen, the problem is what separates Patrick Mahomes, once again, is he harnesses that wild.
Right.
Josh Allen doesn't harness anything. Josh Allen is Brett Favre.
No.
He's Brett Favre who can run the ball, who's 6'5". Like,
early
that's what
John Elway.
Yeah, right. Well, and Josh Allen's been in the league 7 years. Okay, so this isn't like, he's going to learn. Josh Allen was a turnover machine his rookie year and his second year, and then he got it. Brian Daboll changed his career. Brian Daboll is gone. Okay, Josh Allen statistically is one of the most, like, it's incredible. He's like what a good version of a car crash is. It's just popcorn. It's incredible to watch because he's more like, he's not as imposing as Cam Newton was as a runner, but he doesn't care. He's a bowling ball. He runs over people. Doesn't matter. Now, what Patrick Mahomes does is a lot more like what Aaron Rodgers does in the gray, which is, like, he's a guy who can get 20 yards, chunk yards running the ball where you don't even see it's just man coverage. It's 3rd and 10. It's like, oh, you're going to give this to me. I'm going to take it. Okay. Right. Lamar Jackson, obviously Jalen Hurts, other guys, Josh Allen aren't really like that. I'm looking at a game manager with like a Tyrod Taylor, like a much higher floor where it's like, it can't go catastrophically wrong. With Jalen Hurts, it could. With Josh Allen, it could. With Lamar Jackson, it could. We've seen in the playoffs, like, it looks different for every player. But, like, having a guy who's going to be more of a metronome for the defense, for the offense, hand the ball off, run play action, throw to the tight end, throw to the wide receiver one, and let them do their work like Tua. Tua's run 5-yard outs. He's throwing Alex Smith passing yards the majority of the time. It's an 8-yard out that turns into a 70-yard touchdown.
Hit the slant, take it to the house.
Yeah, but he throws the ball down the field a lot too. I mean, with Mike.
Okay, I have one question though before we go anywhere. Just one. Sure. Who is the worst quarterback in the NFL that you think you could put on San Francisco and they would win the Super Bowl?
Daniel Jones.
But hold on. Brock Purdy is better than Daniel Jones. So and they didn't win with
who's
Brock
the worst
Purdy.
Quarterback.
Right. So if they can't win with Brock Purdy, Daniel Jones is worse than Brock Purdy. So, like, it would have to be someone better than Brock Purdy because Brock Purdy wasn't good enough to win it.
Yeah. I mean, I feel like if you can add a guy, it's interesting. With the Alex
Jared
Smith
Goff?
skills. Oh, they would have won a Super Bowl with Jared Goff already.
Okay, so Trevor Lawrence.
No. Brock Purdy's better.
No. Kirk Cousins.
No. We haven't seen it.
Tua.
Oh, see, that's an interesting one. Tua with Debo. Tua would have unlocked Debo much better than they're doing it with Brock Purdy.
Right. San Francisco is just the same thing as Miami, just a step up better because you got the master, not the pupil, and you got a better cast and a better defense. Like, San Francisco is the better version of Miami.
Plus, I'd take Christian McCaffrey over all three of those running backs combined. I'd rather have Christian McCaffrey solely than those three backs that they have.
Right. Exactly. So Jordan Love. I
think he's too he's not as militaristic as Kyle Shanahan needs somebody to be.
Right. My answer is gonna be Jared Goff, and I would have Jared Goff like 10, 11, 12 if I did my
too.
own personal ranking. So to me, like, that is when it comes to like, who can you win a Super Bowl with? Can you win a Super Bowl with a game manager? To me, it's like you got to have a top 12 quarterback in the NFL. And if you don't, you're not going to win a Super Bowl. I don't care who you got, because San Francisco is the best version you could have. Great defense, great weapons, literally great weapons. One of the best offensive coaches in the history of the NFL, period. Play caller, designer, everything. Everybody wanted to be him for the last 5-6 years. So to me, Brock Purdy is probably, 13, 14, 15, 16, somewhere in there. So I'm going to say Jared Goff is the worst quarterback that you could win a Super Bowl with in San Francisco, which I think is because that's like a perfect scenario. So I think that's a fair way to judge it.
Yeah, Jared Goff is the Tom Brady of Andy Dalton's. You know what I mean?
I love that little, he's the this of this guy. It's just such a great way to explain things. Yes, I think Jared Goff is the Tom Brady of Andy Dalton.
Even though Andy Dalton made the playoffs like 5 years in a row, they never won. I still
that makes it perfect. That is a great place to stop, because that is excellent wisdom from Alex. Jared Goff is the Tom Brady of Andy Dalton's. That's fantastic. With that being said, though, that is going to do it for this Thursday edition of the Locked On NFL podcast. Make sure that you check out Locked On NFL on Friday as well for some fantastic content. We're going to be with you all summer long, Monday through Friday. We don't slow down here on the Locked On Podcast Network. So get subscribed, stay subscribed. It's your team every day. With that being said, I'm Tyler Rowland here with my co-host Alex Clancy. As I tell you every week, start your weekend early and stay safe out there.